Hey, what's going on everybody, and welcome back to my channel, The Real Estate Real. Today what we're discussing is, should we expect a real estate market crash in 2022? So a lot of buyers that I've been talking to and investors lately have pretty much been asking, or relying on the fact that the market might go down in 2022, and they're pretty much crossing their fingers for it. So investors want this so they can get into new properties, as well as some investors I've seen are getting rid of their old properties lately, just in case there is a possible market crash around the corner. So that's what I want to talk about here with you today. Is there going to be a market crash in 2022? But by understanding the mindset of individuals in the market, it can help you get a better idea of how the market pretty much determines itself and what is determined overall in the market. So as you probably already know, in 2008 there was a market crash, and since then it's almost been like the sky is falling pretty much. It seems like a lot of people are sitting back and they're waiting to see if there will be another market crash soon enough. So that's kind of another reason why we're here talking about it today. There's always a ton of information out there in whether the market is going to crash or not, and I kind of want to iterate to you that most of that stuff going on is pretty much clickbait. There's a lot of people out there that are going to keep pushing it, because a lot of people will actually watch the videos if they think that there's going to be a market crash, or it just entices people to watch your videos or read your article at the time. So that is something what I want to say is why it is such a well-known topic all the time. But today we're going to talk about kind of what goes into a market crash, and you can determine yourself based on the numbers and everything going on if we are going to see a market crash or not. I want you to decide that yourself. So what indicators really go into seeing whether or not there's going to be a market crash? I already brought up the market crash of 2008, and what you need to know if you don't already know about that market crash is the reason the market crashed during that time was because of faulty loans. If you haven't seen movies on it, there's a ton of movies, there's a ton of information that's already come out, like the movie The Big Short and things of that nature. So obviously banks are going to be a little more reluctant to try to put buyers in a situation where they can't afford that home, so that they pre-foreclose or foreclose on the home. And why would they care? Obviously, if the home is going to pre-foreclose, it's because the home is backed by the bank, but the money that the banks are getting are from the Federal Reserve and things of that nature. So banks have to make sure that they have liquid assets and liquid cash on hand that is going to substantiate that, so they don't end up, falling out, and banks don't want to pretty much foreclose themselves or close down themselves. So although history does repeat itself a lot, here in 2022, the cause of a probable market crash probably is not going to be that the loans were faulty or people deferred on their loans. So we really need to look into different factors in this case. Factors like unemployment rate, housing prices, and the demand in the housing market right now. And I know what you're thinking. Unemployment was actually at the highest rate it's ever been in 2020, and you would probably be correct. In 2020, a ton happened, unemployment rate soared, and you would be right. But during 2020, the unemployment rate happened, and it happened to be filled with a lot of individuals who actually didn't own a home at the time. So vice versa, what was happening is that even though a lot of people were applying for unemployment, there weren't a ton of people that were on unemployment that owned homes. So that turned out to be a good thing, because obviously not as many homes as we thought were foreclosing at the time, and people weren't losing their homes as much as it could have happened. But during 2020, the unemployment rate had been filled with a lot of individuals that didn't own homes, like I said. And also in California and other states, of course, that mortgage forbearance prevented people and individuals from getting evicted in their homes, regardless of whether they actually have paid rent or not for the year 20 and 2021. So if you didn't pay rent, it actually turned out that it could have possibly been a good thing for you during that time, because the government, like Governor Newsom, and during that time, Governor Newsom actually passed another grant to help people who were in mortgage forbearance possibly pay off their home if they didn't have the cash or value to pay for their home at the time. So Obviously, we know that we just went through the biggest pandemic almost, maybe possibly in history. I can't really tell you because I didn't live through the whole. I haven't lived over 100 years. I'm only 28 right now. So let's come all the way back right now to present day. With mortgage forbearance lifted at the end of 2021, it was expected to see a dramatic increase, but that wasn't the case, like I said. Once again, in certain situations, the government stepped in, and those affected by by not being able to pay their mortgage during the pandemic, they were only pretty much required to pay 25% of their mortgage back at the time. And if they couldn't do this, of course, there was other grants available, which if you haven't looked into those already and you're listening to this and you are possibly facing anything of that nature, I would definitely look into it. But, which of course, they did prevent a lot of the foreclosures going into foreclosures. And as far as unemployment goes, the unemployment rate from 2020 actually dropped substantially from almost 14% to 3.8%. So it looks like as far as unemployment goes, we are starting to rebuild as a country, which is obviously a good thing because we don't want the country to go into another recession. Pretty much, I wouldn't want to see it myself. I hate when I see people, hurting or doing bad at the time. It's just part of me. I can't help it. Whether you make money or not during the time, I can't help whether that's going. I don't want people to lose money. So now that we talked about all that stuff that had factored into previous market crashes or things of that nature, loans. We've talked about unemployment now and the possible foreclosures that would have happened in 2020 but did not happen because of mortgage forbearance and other things like that. What's really the reason why the housing market has stayed up so high right now? And the answer is really pretty simple, and you probably already knew it yourself before watching this video, but it is the demand in the housing market right now. Here in California, where I work and sell houses, Sacramento has a housing inventory, which we call of less than a month, which means that, during the month of, January or February, if all the buyers that were pretty much looking to get into the market at the time, they all got their house, they'd wipe out all the houses on the market right now. So that's why inventory is really low. But luckily, now in the market, when one person gets into the house, it opens up or usually frees up another person to get in the house. So that's the kind of chain reaction that we're seeing right now. And like I said, it's pretty much the demand, which is also the demand is driving the prices at a substantially high rate, because when more people have the demand to get in the house, just like anything else, it makes it more competitive for a house. We aren't still seeing, sometimes we do see 20 offers on a home, but as of late, we are seeing just a few, maybe 5 or 6 offers on the home, but essentially that's still a lot if it is a seller's market, because if it's a buyer's market, we're going to have, more buyers out there looking for the houses that they think they could get into, and, essentially when it's a buyer's market, it could be more of a housing crisis at the time. So we've been wrapped in this little loop right now for a couple of years of, whether or not we think the sky is going to fall and the market's going to crash and things of that nature. But to wrap it up pretty much, I don't believe that there will be a market crash in 2022. Just from the numbers I went over, unemployment's going back down. It looks like the country's recovering from the pandemic that happened in 2020 and the coronavirus. So, of course, there's a lot of things that go into these factors, but like I said, the main things that you should be looking at, to see if there's going to be a housing crisis is you can always look back on the loans, but right now, like I said, banks are really on top of that stuff. They don't want, buyers foreclosing on their loan. They want to make sure that you're able to pay for that loan that they're giving you. That's why they take all this extra information to try to make sure you're paying for that stuff. Unemployment rate's always going to be something to watch. If unemployment rate's around 20%, we're in a huge recession. People in Fortune 500s, managers, other things of that nature are losing their jobs. There's going to be a lot more middle class people that are going to lose their jobs, and that's going to open up a huge vacancy in the housing market, as well as because of the situation we're in right now and the war in Ukraine and Russia. In fact, I just do want to touch on it a little bit based on what I've read from World War II. The reason that the housing market did drop a little was because there was a ton of vacancies during that time. Soldiers were often drafted Some of those people lived in the house at the time. Some of those people lived in a house at the time, I should say. And there were, unfortunately, a lot of casualties at the time. So we really don't want that either. I'm thinking, obviously. But that's just my 2 cents on it. Of course, those are a lot of things that we can look at, like I said before. Loan processes, unemployment, the demand in the housing market right now, as well as, you know, a fair number of other possible things that you could always be looking at to see the competitive nature of the market. So I really hope this was informative to you. I always try to do my best to make these videos. I love them. I love the information I learned during these videos, and I hope you do too. Of course, always like and subscribe. Leave any questions below, comments, or even if you have constructive feedback. I don't run away from that stuff. Just don't say I suck. So thanks. Of course, thanks for tuning in today, and you have a wonderful day.